My wife secretly transferred $250, $0 of our savings to her half-brother's offshore account weeks before our divorce, and now she's claiming I'm trying to steal the house, whose title she forged using a fake power of attorney. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought my marriage would end like this, with my wife cheating on me and stealing our savings right before she filed for divorce. It all started with little things, her being secretive about her phone, disappearing for hours without explanation, and suddenly being overly defensive whenever I asked about her day. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe she was stressed at work or just going through a rough patch. But then I found out she was lying about where she was going, and that's when I started noticing the red flags piling up. One day, I was going through our bank statements out of curiosity, just trying to get a sense of where our money was going when I saw the transaction that made my stomach drop. A transfer of $250, $0, more than half of our savings, was sent to some offshore account in her half-brother's name. I didn't even know she had a half-brother, let alone that she was funneling that much money to him. The timing was suspicious, too. It was just weeks before she filed for divorce. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I felt sick, like I'd been punched in the gut. It made me question everything, her loyalty, her honesty, whether I ever really knew her at all. I immediately started digging. I checked her phone, her emails, her social media accounts, anything that could shed light on what she was up to. That's when I found the messages. She'd been in contact with her half-brother, Alex, more than she admitted. And the messages weren't just about family stuff. They were about money, about transferring cash, about covering her tracks. I saw emails where she was instructing him to hide the money, to use fake names, to avoid taxes. Then I found texts where she was bragging about how she was finally free from that stupid husband, and how she was planning her new life. With Alex, I felt a mix of rage and betrayal. How could she do this? How could she lie to me for so long? I kept asking myself if I'd missed the signs, if I'd been blind to her deception all along. The worst part was knowing that she'd been planning her escape for weeks, maybe months, and I was just the last to find out. I confronted her that night, and her reaction was nothing like I expected. She acted innocent at first, denying everything, claiming I was paranoid, that I was trying to ruin her reputation. Then she got bitchy, snapping at me, calling me insecure, accusing me of not trusting her. She said she was just trying to build a future for herself, that I was holding her back. It was all bullshit. The more she lied, the angrier I got. I couldn't believe how calm she was, how she could look me in the eye and spin her stories. I knew she was hiding something, but I didn't realize how deep the rabbit hole went until I saw the proof of her betrayal laid out in front of me. That's when I started feeling like I'd been living with a stranger, someone I no longer recognized. The trust I once had was shattered, replaced by a burning need to understand why she'd do this, why she would betray me, steal from us, and then lie to my face. I felt humiliated, furious, and heartbroken all at once. I'd been by her greed and lies, and I didn't know how I was supposed to move forward from here. After that night, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, that cold, bitchy look she gave me when she was lying. I started digging even deeper, trying to connect the dots, trying to understand how she could do this to me. I knew I had to act fast, especially knowing she might try to cover her tracks or even destroy evidence. The first thing I did was get a lawyer, someone who knew about property and financial fraud. I needed to protect what was mine, especially the house, which she kept claiming she owned outright. She had been insisting I was trying to steal it, but I knew better. In the meantime, I decided to do some reconnaissance. I followed her when I could, watched her interactions with her half-brother, and checked her phone logs more carefully. That's when I discovered she'd been meeting Alex secretly, sometimes late at night. I saw messages where they were discussing how to handle the house, and she kept mentioning forging signatures, creating fake documents. My blood ran cold. She'd been planning her escape for weeks, maybe longer. I felt like I'd been living in a nightmare, like I was watching everything slip away from me, piece by piece. One day, I found a folder on her laptop filled with fake documents, power of attorney forms, fake signatures, even a deed transfer for the house. She forged my name, forged her own, and made it look like she had full control of everything. That's when I realized she was prepared to steal the house right out from under me. She lied about everything: her job, her family, her intentions. It was all a con. I confronted her again, this time with the evidence on hand. I showed her the forged documents and the emails. Her face went pale, but she quickly recovered, throwing out a string of lies. Her favorite excuse was that she was just trying to protect herself, that I was a bad husband and she deserved better, that she never loved me the way I thought. She insisted she was the victim, that I was trying to ruin her reputation and take what's rightfully hers. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew her game, and I saw right through her. I told her I had all the proof I needed to take her to court, to get a judge to declare her actions illegal and to freeze her assets. That's when she started losing her temper, yelling, accusing me of being a monster, saying I was jealous and insecure. But I didn't care. I was done playing her game. I also found out about the offshore account she transferred the money to, an account in her half-brother's name, in some tiny island country with lax regulations. She'd been funneling our savings there, planning to disappear with it. That's when I realized she'd been planning her escape for a long time. I started gathering everything: the emails, the bank statements, the forged documents, to build a case against her. I wanted to make sure she couldn't get away with it, that she'd pay for the betrayal. I felt a mixture of heartbreak and fury, knowing I'd been and played for a fool. But I was also determined to fight back, to reclaim what was mine and have her face the consequences of her actions. Over the next few days, I threw myself into gathering evidence and consulting with my lawyer. It was like trying to piece together a puzzle, but every piece pointed to her betrayal. I couldn't shake the feeling of being duped, of trusting her for so long only to find out she'd been lying and scheming behind my back. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got. I kept thinking about how she'd lied about her feelings, about wanting a future together, all while secretly planning her escape with the money and the house. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. One morning, I decided to check her phone again, something I'd avoided doing before, but now I needed to know exactly what she was hiding. I found a string of texts between her and Alex, where they talked about cleaning up the offshore account and getting rid of any evidence. They discussed her forging my signature on the house deed, making it look like she was the sole owner. I felt a surge of rage. This wasn't just infidelity, it was theft, fraud, and outright deception. I couldn't believe I'd been living with someone capable of this level of betrayal. That same day, I went to our bank with my lawyer. We demanded to freeze all accounts related to her offshore transfers. I wanted to prevent her from draining any more money, and I wanted to see where all the funds had gone. The bank confirmed the transfer of $250, $0 to her half-brother's offshore account. That was more than half of our savings gone. I felt sick again. It was like she'd stolen our future, our security, everything we'd worked for. For a moment, I wondered if I'd been blind or just naive. How could she do this to me? How could she betray me after all the years we spent together? Meanwhile, she was still insisting she was the victim. She kept telling me I was paranoid, that I didn't trust her, that I was just jealous and insecure. She claimed the money was for her emotional stability, that she needed it to start fresh, to get out of a bad situation she said I'd caused. She threw tantrums, called me controlling, accused me of trying to ruin her life. But I knew better. I saw her true face now: greedy, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything for her own benefit. The more she lied, the more I realized I had to protect myself and what was left of our life. I made a decision then to fight back legally and to expose her lies publicly if I had to. I was done trusting her, done hoping she'd change or see reason. She could scream, lie, and manipulate all she wanted, but I had enough evidence to prove she'd been planning her escape for months. I knew this wasn't just about money, it was about her betrayal of everything we had built. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I had to do what was right for myself, for what was left of our marriage, and for the truth. I couldn't let her get away with this, not without a fight. In the days that followed, I felt like I was living in a storm, every moment filled with chaos, anger, and a strange sense of clarity. I kept replaying everything in my head, trying to find a way to fix this or at least get some control back. I reached out to a forensic accountant to trace the money transferred offshore. Turns out, the account in her brother's name was just one piece of a much larger puzzle. She'd been funneling money through multiple shell companies, hiding it from the authorities, and planning her escape for months. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so trusting. The more I uncovered, the more furious I got. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the lies, the deception, the way she'd manipulated me into thinking everything was fine when she was secretly planning her new life. I started to see her for what she was, bitchy, manipulative, willing to cheat and steal to get what she wanted. And the worst part, she was convinced she was the victim in all of this. That's what made it worse. She spun stories about how I was controlling, how I didn't support her, how she was just trying to survive. It was all bullshit. One day, I decided to confront her again, but this time I was prepared. I told her I had all the evidence, proof of the offshore accounts, forged signatures, and her plans to walk away with everything. I showed her the bank statements, the emails, the fake power of attorney she forged to transfer the house title. Her face twisted into a sneer, and she started yelling, calling me paranoid, saying I was just jealous and insecure. She claimed she was doing all this to protect herself, that I'd ruined her life, and that I was just trying to keep her from being happy. But I wasn't buying her lies anymore. I saw her for what she was, a woman willing to destroy our marriage for money and freedom. At that point, I decided it was time to act decisively. I contacted my lawyer and told him I wanted a court order to freeze all her assets, including the offshore accounts and any property she might try to claim as hers. I also filed for an emergency injunction to stop her from transferring or selling any part of the house. I knew she'd tried to use her forged power of attorney to claim ownership, but I had the evidence to prove it was fake. I wasn't going to let her steal what was legally mine. I felt like I was fighting not just for the house or the money, but for my dignity. I had been betrayed on every level, and I refused to let her get away with it. As I sat in the lawyer's office, going over the legal strategy, I realized how much this had changed me. I used to think marriage was about trust, about building a future together. Now, I knew better. I learned that sometimes people you love can turn out to be your worst enemies. I also learned that the truth always comes out in the end. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's painful, but it's necessary. I felt a strange mix of heartbreak and relief. Heartbreak because I'd lost the woman I thought I knew, and relief because I finally saw the reality. The road ahead was uncertain, but I knew I had to fight for what was right. I wasn't going down without a fight. The legal battle was brutal. My lawyer managed to get a court order to freeze her offshore accounts and halt any transfer of property. It was a small victory, but it felt like I was finally taking back some control. Still, I knew she was cunning and wouldn't go down without a fight. She started making more aggressive claims, insisting she owned the house outright, that I had no right to challenge her. She even accused me of trying to steal from her, classic her, twisting everything around. I couldn't believe the audacity, especially when I had all the evidence that she forged my signature and transferred our savings to her half-brother. Meanwhile, she was still insisting she was the victim, crying to her friends and family about how I was controlling and abusive. She managed to convince some people that I was trying to ruin her reputation, that she was just trying to start fresh after years of oppression. I heard from a few mutual friends that she was spinning stories, painting herself as the wronged wife. That made me angrier. She was out there lying, manipulating everyone, while I was sitting here trying to protect what was left of my life. During all this, I discovered she'd been secretly meeting with her half-brother, Alex, even after I started uncovering the truth. They'd been planning to move the money. Further, maybe even disappear altogether. I found more emails where she was discussing fake signatures, creating new documents, and even talking about how she'd win the house in court. It was like she was willing to burn everything down just to get her way. That's when I realized this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about her complete disregard for me, for our marriage, for the truth. I decided I had to make a move that would really hit her where it hurt. I hired a private investigator to follow her, to gather even more proof of her plans to run away or hide assets. Sure enough, he caught her meeting with Alex again, discussing how they'd split the money and start fresh somewhere else. That was the final straw. I had enough now to go straight to the court and demand full disclosure, and I did just that. I filed for full financial transparency, and I requested a forensic audit of all accounts linked to her offshore dealings. The judge granted the order quickly. It was a relief to know I had the law on my side, but it also made everything real. She was really trying to walk away with everything, including the house which she had forged into her name. I knew I had to stay strong. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, but I refused to let her win. I'd been betrayed, lied to, stolen from, and manipulated, but I wasn't going to let her destroy what little I had left. I realized that protecting myself wasn't just about the money or the house. It was about reclaiming my life from her lies and greed. I'd come too far to back down now. The fight was just beginning. In the end, everything unraveled faster than I could have imagined. The forensic audit revealed the extent of her deception. She transferred not just the $250, $0, but also hidden assets, fake ownership documents, and even forged signatures on the house deed. The court saw through her lies and issued an order to nullify the fake power of attorney, declaring the transfer of the house invalid. It was a long, exhausting process, but I finally managed to secure legal ownership of what was rightfully mine. The offshore accounts were seized, and she faced charges for fraud and forgery, her own greed and lies catching up with her. The aftermath was brutal. She tried to contest everything, spinning more stories about how I was abusive, jealous, and trying to ruin her life. But her lies couldn't stand up to the mountain of evidence. She was forced to return the stolen money, and the court ordered her to pay damages for the fraud. I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness, relief that I'd fought for my rights, and sadness for what I'd lost. I'd loved her once, but I realized I'd been living with a person who only cared about herself. Living through this ordeal changed me. I learned that trust is fragile, and sometimes the people closest to you can betray you the most. I also learned the importance of standing up for myself, no matter how overwhelming the betrayal feels. I've become more cautious, more aware of the signs of manipulation and greed. Most importantly, I've come to understand that sometimes walking away is the only way to truly reclaim your life. Looking back, I wish I could say I'm fully healed, but the scars remain. Still, I feel stronger now, more aware of what to watch out for, more determined not to let someone else's greed ruin me again. I hope my story serves as a warning. Never ignore the red flags and always protect yourself legally. People can surprise you, sometimes in the worst ways. But in the end, honesty, integrity, and standing your ground are what really matter. I've learned that much, and I carry that lesson with me now.